Hi, I'm Ben Hjertmann. I'm performing on September 3rd at 8:15 p.m. along with my band, the Wallace Band. So Grant Wallace was a visual artist who lived in Northern California in the early 20th century, and he, like many of the artists that we've been inspired by, drew these sort of imaginative descriptions of other places, and it's sort of a little bit tongue-in-cheek and yet also sort of vast and amazing, the things that he dreamed. We have taken him as our namesake. Grant Wallace Band is myself. I sing and play little mandolin, Luke Gullickson, who plays piano and guitar and sings, Chris Fisher-Lockhead, who plays viola and sings. Luke and I were friends during undergrad, both composers. All of us are trained as composers more than performers, and Chris and I were friends in grad school. All of our songs individually are quite different from each other. People ask us what kind of music we make, and we'll sort of look at each other like, it's your turn to deal with that question. Originally, we wanted to start the group as kind of a faux jazz trio. We wrote about one jazz song. It's called Grant Wallace Band, or GWB number 1, and then decided that we wanted to write weird avant Tin Pan Alley songs instead, or avant leader or something. We're always trying to move it in some new direction. I kind of came up in the rock world in a way. I mean, I'm from a very small town, and when I was a little kid playing with Legos, my dad put on Nine Inch Nails and the Beatles. Was making rock as a high schooler and sang in the band, and then eventually we ended up just kind of like recording boxes full of broken glass and screaming and things. And then I got to college and sort of learned all of the classical stuff at the same time. So I got Mozart at the same time that I got Schoenberg. I didn't really consider myself a singer at the time. I was more of an actor. I kind of started in theater as a performer. I played Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, and so that got me wanting to write a musical. I wanted to learn how to orchestrate and use classical instruments and whatnot. And I did write a musical as a 17-year-old. It's called Charlie. It's terrible. In college, I did the sort of classical voice thing a little bit. I sang lead and I didn't do opera, but I sang in tons of a cappella groups and madrigals and barbershop quartet. So mostly was an ensemble singer. And I think, Grant Wallace Band is kind of the first time since I was much younger that I've been singing as the lead voice. I also do that in this Kong Must Dead project. That's sort of a similar arrangement, except I write all the music, and as opposed to it being collaborative. So the Grant Wallace Band is much more collaborative. The Kong Must Dead thing is always changing. Originally, I made a hip-hop EP, and then I made like an indie rock album under that name. And then in January of this year, I performed the Kong Must Dead latest project with 8 other people. About six months from now, I'll have kind of a solid group that will play that and come to New York and perform it around. We sort of find in the process of writing the music, we discover these little quirks to our instruments that we are able to control, and then we'll sort of write that into a song in particular. So one in particular is our song Oranjestraat, which is named after a street in Amsterdam. The song involves some sort of yodeling, like sort of like cranberries. I have been asked to growl a few times in my life. It's sort of like, and, you can kind of hold a note there. I've always been really interested in this question of what influences us and how does that work its way in. And I feel like I'm sort of always wanting my influences to shine through my music. One time in 2009, I set out to write a piece of music that was supposed to combine Louis Andriessen and indie band Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah. It was called Have an Orange and Elephant Fruit. I was happy with the result of this song, and it sounds absolutely nothing like those two influences. Mondegreens are, well, that word comes from, I don't remember the writer's name, but she said that when she was a child and someone was singing her to sleep, they sang this song, and in it, one of the lines ended with Lady Mondegreen. Later on in life, she realized that the line of the song was actually laid him on the green. In that piece, Have an Orange and Elephant Fruit, there's a lot of references to famous pop lyrics as Mondegreens. So I just wrote basically lyrics that rhyme with or sound very similar to like a whole line from a famous pop song. Like, there's Danny Boy is in there and some Beatles songs. Basically the way Grant Wallace Band works is we don't really improvise to start. Well, somebody will basically write a song or a scrap, and that person usually writes the lyrics, so they're sort of in charge of the semantic element of the song. So I would say that I've written probably 70%, 80% of Grant Wallace Band's lyrics. We pretty much collaborate on definitely orchestration and form. Usually the lyrics are just sort of whatever the person brought in, and that often, I think, makes them even stranger because they're largely unedited and mostly written, very late at night. Grant Wallace Band in particular we're really influenced by these outsider artists, and particularly there's a book called The End Is Near that has all these sort of apocalyptic drawings. But that book, The End Is Near, we've used to inspire a lot of the lyrics in particular, and also song titles. So particularly you can point to some strange lyrics like Land of the Linu, which is one that we perform often. It's a vocal canon. And the lyrics, as strange as they are, were my attempt to try to describe this visual art by Eugene von Bronkenheim called Apocalyptic Cityscape in Flames, Land of the Linu. It's sort of an explosive, colorful cityscape. And there's this black hole in the top right-hand corner, and so you keep hearing in the lyric, I'm trying to make sense of what the colors are in this hole. I like to exist in this kind of range between, say, 30 and 70% semantic sense. I want the lyrics to make some sense. I don't want them to be meaningless. What I've always loved about lyrics is that I've spent a lot of my life listening to, with pop music especially, you listen many times, right? And so your favorite songs, you're sort of repeating on loop in your head. As the years go by, you're driving in your car and you're saying these lyrics over and over again. It becomes kind of like an incantation or even a prayer or something. Even pop music lyrics, if you really wrote them down, they don't really make sense. And then I think that's part of what makes our brain want to keep twirling them around in our heads. We try to provide some kind of story. For example, our song White Owl Invincible is like it's a simple folk song, but it's actually a cryptic murder mystery. We have a band artist, Alex Mitchell, who we work with to try to tell these stories with all of those things combined. Grant Wallace Band and Kong Must Dead basically are my realm where I'm singing, and for me it's quite a bit of a game changer, not just because I'm involved, but because I really believe that the voice is the ultimate game changer. I mean, we all know there are so many unique things about the voice that separate it from other instruments: the empathetic quality of the audience, the fact that the physicality of the instrument is changeable in real time, and the meaning of the words, etc. So it's so different that it really has kind of splintered off, as that whole realm feels very separate to me than if you say I'm writing for 4 strings. Because I don't have the direct quality of the lyrics, I'm personally less likely to even want to try to tell a story in any way. I'm very excited by these current directions of, like I was saying, me singing with Kong Must Dead especially. I feel like there's this whole realm in between pop and classical. We've been hearing about this for 20, 30 years, and yet I think there's so much territory there that's still unexplored. It goes much beyond instrumentation and forms and chords. I think there's a kind of great sea of possibility in there that I see. I have this lofty goal of wanting to have music be immediate and also interesting at the same time. I don't think there's any reason why we can't have interesting harmony and interesting rhythm and also have an immediacy of experience that the audience doesn't feel closed off by, that they feel invited in. I guess to some extent, I think that comes from sort of explaining the music in the music, kind of like the Steve Reich music as an audible process kind of a thing. Whatever you're doing under the hood, that if we can expose that and show the audience that they have a way in to understand the music, I think that's kind of my goal in a way, to sort of put all those things together. I'm really excited to join up for the festival and to have the Grant Wallace Band with me there. I think we'd like to try to see what light having a vocal-centered performance will shine on what we do. It's already going to be a very unique performance for us to be looking at it from the standpoint of the voice and what the voices are doing. It's going to be our second time performing in New York, and we're really happy to be invited.